So the first question is, all right, first say your name and your position.
My name is Don Chance, and I hold the James C. Flores Endowed Chair of MBA Studies at the Ourso College of Business at LSU.
Okay. So what is going on in the economy and the markets right now?
Well, these are really interesting times. Well, what's going on here in a weird sort of way is a lot simpler than what typically goes on in a financial or economic crisis. We know what's driving this. We know it's related to the virus. And it's not some sort of complicated thing with the banks and regulations and things like that. It's related to the virus. And it's actually related sort of indirectly from the virus. It's more directly from, I feel like, a decision that we've made to take the economy down a notch. I think we basically flatlined about a quarter of the economy in an effort to try to fight this virus. And we've never really done that before. And, if we think back to the last time we actually had a pandemic, most people are not actually aware of it, was just 11 years ago in 2009, what was called swine flu, H1N1. And most people don't know that there were about 61 million Americans who got that flu, 270,000 hospitalized and 12,000 died. And then every year, 30, 40,000 people die of the flu. So we don't take these actions. So this year, either through just a decision that we sort of collectively made or through the fact that we're not sure where this virus is going to lead us, we basically, as I feel like, we basically flatlined about a quarter of the economy. And the stock market has done what it typically does in these situations. It's obsessed with short-term performance over the next, few months now, and has really tanked something horribly. And I think the long-term outlook is actually quite good. And when we get our hands on, a cure or a vaccine or better testing, or, and basically defeat this, I think it's going to come surging back. Whereas in a lot of other financial crises, there've just been endless books about what caused this, studies of, what happened, what caused the financial crisis. But this is much more obvious. And I think in some ways that's going to make it easier to deal with it as we sort of come out of it. So that's my take on it. And I could be wrong, but that's sort of my view, is that we've basically taken a quarter of the economy and said, let's shut it down and try to fight this so it doesn't get any worse, or at least as bad as some of the others have been.
So should we be worried about our money long term?
Well, yeah, I mean, I sort of answered that, I slipped that answer in the first question. Is I'm not worried at all about long term, because it's not hard to remember where we were a couple of months ago. I think the long term outlook was very good. I think we have to be patient. Honestly, there's a lot of economic pain, and today is the day that ends the quarter, and it's going to be the worst quarter since about 1987 or so. So I think we just have to, I think we have to accept this short-term pain. I think it's going to save a lot of lives and all, but I'm not in the least bit worried, long-term. And I think, if you stop and think about it, there's not a reason to worry long-term, but we don't know how long this situation is going to last. So it's going to be painful for a while, but I'm very optimistic long-term.
Right. Okay, how should people approaching retirement think about this crisis with regard to their money versus those who are not approaching retirement?
Yeah, it's always difficult for people who are close to retirement. If the money they have put into the market is the money they're going to need for retirement, it's going to be very painful when you see how much money that is. And it sort of leads to something that we say, I know I've been saying in what I teach and what I've said in presentations, is that the general rule of thumb is that you have to decrease your exposure to the market as you get older. Now, if you have other resources to live on, that's a little bit different and all. But people who are retiring right now, and if they're going to start drawing on their money, of course, there's going to be less money to draw on. But then, by the same token, they don't typically draw all of it out, the day they retire. So that is something to and a little bit of a lesson to be learned, that if you depend on this money, you've got to reduce your exposure as you get closer. It's actually another situation when this applies, and that is these college savings plans. When people put money away for their kids to go to college, and if that's the only resources they've got, when their kids start turning 16, 17 or so, they've got to be reducing their exposure to the market and putting it more into short-term, low-risk instruments. And I will say that the very good thing is we here at LSU and in the state of Louisiana have among our optional retirement plan and our supplemental retirement plans, we have these things called target date funds. And they do this for you automatically. It's one of the great investment ideas that's ever been invented, where they basically, as you get closer to retirement, they lower the exposure to the market. And we just put these target date funds in for LSU 2 years ago when we did a complete overhaul of their program. And we negotiated very hard and got the cost of these funds down really low. So I'm a strong advocate of target date funds. I sort of do my own. I sort of make my own, but for most people who don't know how to do it, they're a great idea. And that's what people need to do if they don't really know how to do this on their own. The main thing is you got to reduce your exposure if you need this pile of money at a certain time. Young people, of course, they can afford to wait. They can ride this out, and they've got plenty of time for it to catch up.
All right. Well, and finally, is there a silver lining in the clouds?
Well, yeah, there's actually there's one financial silver lining, and I actually heard a couple of non-financial silver linings the last few days. The financial silver lining is that we're having money coming out of our paychecks regularly. It's money you don't actually see, and all it comes out of your paycheck and goes right on into your retirement funds. And the silver lining is that you are buying stock right now really cheap. And so that money is going to go up in value by a substantial amount when the market comes back. The other silver lining I actually heard, non-financial, but I got to throw it in because I heard it, is that if we keep up these really good habits of washing our hands and that kind of thing, even when we are able to get back, close to each other, if we can keep up these hand washing habits, my theory is they're going to be next year, doctors are going to be sitting around wondering where their flu patients are. So I know these are habits that I'm learning a lot better, and I'm going to try to continue them. And then yesterday I heard an economist on a podcast say that it's an economist that studies pollution, and he said that he has data to actually show that the reduction in air pollution has huge benefits to us. When you take the economy down, he actually claims that there are going to be more lives saved in Wuhan from the reduction of pollution than died in the virus. I'm not totally sure I believe it, but he's a very learned economist. So in some sense, taking the markets down is painful, but there always are some benefits. I mean, there are some environmental benefits to this and all that aren't as obvious on the surface. But anyway, we're buying stocks cheap right now, and that's what I look at, is that I think when we come back, we're going to make some really good returns on this money.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you.